This is the entrance to the University of Florida's Natural Area Teaching Laboratory on the southwest corner of campus. To the east is the entomology building, and to the west is the Phillips Center and the museum plaza. I brought you out here today because this Natural Area Teaching Lab, also known as NATL, has a large wetland inside of it, and I'd like to spend a little bit more time talking about nutrient pollution and eutrophication of aquatic environments to prepare you to complete your first assignment on water quality. Before I introduce the assignment though, I want to give you a little background about this wetland and the Natural Area Teaching Lab that you see. This wetland is referred to as the SEEP, and that stands for Stormwater Ecological Enhancement Project. Dr. Mark Clark of the Soil and Water Sciences Department here on campus is going to tell you a little bit more about the history of this area and the role that it plays in removing the nutrients from the water as it moves through the landscape and discharges into a sinkhole at the end of the property that leads directly to the aquifer.
In this segment, we're going to talk about ecologically enhanced stormwater basins. It's an alternative design for a conventional stormwater basin that enhances the ecological functions, which means we get better water quality, we get wildlife habitat, and we get better aesthetics. It also provides a passive recreational area, which allows for an amenity in the community. It meets the stormwater regulatory permitting criteria, but we get a lot more function out of the landscape. So as we develop the landscape, we often add a lot of impervious area, and instead of the water infiltrating down into the ground, it hits this impervious surface and runs off. And in a conventional design, all of the water runs off and is directed through storm drains like this one underground to stormwater retention basins. Most of those conventional basins essentially are just designed to store that excess water and to treat some of the nutrients. But we've got an alternative, or an ecologically enhanced design, that we're going to show you that provides multiple functions in the landscape. It's hard to believe, but this is the ecologically enhanced stormwater basin that we talked about. This is an area called the forbay, and this is where 85% of the runoff first comes. Right now it's pretty dry because we haven't had much rainfall, but right after a rain event, or even during the rain event, water levels will get several feet thick in here, and you'll be able to see the water right on the surface. But this forebay area is where the water is treated first. A lot of the particulates, the oil and greases, and some of the nutrients remain right here before it flows into the rest of the basin. What keeps the water here initially is something called the weir, which we're going to talk about next. So the forebay where we just were was on this side of the weir. Once the water levels fill up above this notch here, the water starts flowing into the rest of the basin. This is one of the really fundamental differences between a conventional stormwater design and the ecologically enhanced stormwater design. And that's the idea of actually partitioning the basin into different hydrologic units and creating deeper areas that have longer flooded conditions, and then other areas that would be shorter in hydrology. And why that's so important is because it selects for totally different vegetation. And one of the things we want to do in an enhanced basin is actually create more biodiversity. We want to have more plant species here. They provide more habitat, they provide differences in things to look at, flowers during different times of the year, and they also provide different sorts of treatment for the water quality. When water, after it fills this area, it flows through the weir, it starts heading through and meandering through a very dense vegetated marsh that helps treat the water. Once the water leaves the forebay and flows through the weir, it comes down here and is diverted out into the marsh, and that very dense marsh helps us actually treat the water better, especially for nitrogen and phosphorus. The whole basin is about 3 acres in size, and much of it is marsh to try to treat that water. Once the water though flows through the marsh, it ends up in a more ponded area, more like an aquatic system, open water lake, pond, which has totally different habitat, and as that water level draws down, especially this time of year in the fall, concentrates a lot of food sources. We have a lot of wading birds that utilize that food, has a lot of nice wildlife viewing opportunities. On the opposing side, when the water levels are high, water actually has to leave the basin, and where the water leaves is in a collapsed sinkhole, and where that water then goes is down onto the aquifer, which is our drinking water. So it's very important that we try to keep that water clean because we're dependent on it for drinking. So even though we're required to have stormwater retention basins to manage the increased runoff and water quality issues that we cause by impervious areas in the watershed, these same basins can be ecologically enhanced and provide a lot more function in the landscape. This ecologically enhanced stormwater basin is still meeting those regulatory criteria, but providing essentially a natural piece of the landscape. In essence, it's a nice wetland. We have now over 120 species of plants. We see lots of different wildlife and bird species utilizing the area. We've improved our water quality, and it provides a great recreational and educational opportunity in the landscape. So if you're more interested in this sort of ecologically enhanced basin, this particular basin is on the University of Florida campus. There's a self-guided nature trail, so you can learn more about that. There's several kiosks, or you can contact me, Mark Clark, in the Soil and Water Science Department here at the University of Florida.
You may have noticed during Dr. Clark's segment that some of the images of water showed floating aquatic vegetation. The nutrient-laden water triggers a cascade of effects when it enters waterways, wetlands, and coastal environments. Some of the visible effects initially include a proliferation of phytoplankton, things like algae, diatoms, and dinoflagellates. You also see a proliferation of other aquatic vegetation, things like duckweed, which is a tiny flowering plant that floats on or just below the surface. For your assignment focused on water quality, you will need to go out and photograph and assess a body of water near you for signs of eutrophication. I've detailed the exact requirements for the assignment in the link provided for Module 2. All you'll need to bring is your cell phone. You will need to include a selfie, an image of you and the water body. I'm asking you to do this so that I know you actually went outside and connected with your surroundings. I want to get you thinking about water quality issues where you live. You will also need to take additional pictures of the water body so you and I, when I grade your assignment, can assess the level of eutrophication. Then there'll be some specific questions that I ask you to answer. Print out the assignment when you go so that you have that bulleted list of characteristics of eutrophication to look for as you're assessing the water body. These include high levels of algae or other phytoplankton in the form of green mats of vegetation on the surface. Also, decreased water clarity, an absence of submerged aquatic vegetation, algae covering submerged vegetation, and a water body that's characterized by a few dominant species of plants. In his video segment, Dr. Clark talked about the role of this wetland in removing nutrients from the water as it moves across this property and discharges into the aquifer. Similarly, it's critical that we remove nutrients from urban and agricultural runoff before it enters into wetlands and coastal environments. There, as we've discussed in class, it triggers a cascade of events that are associated with eutrophication. Whether you live in an urban area or in an area that's impacted by agricultural and nutrient pollution, water quality issues are going to be a major issue in the coming years. I designed this assignment to get you guys outside and thinking about these issues and how they pertain to you in your local area.